So, Philadelphia 76ers versus Toronto Raptors series preview. The Sixers were the 4 seed in the East, the Raptors the 5 seed. The Sixers this year were 12th in offense, 12th in defense, and 9th in net rating, whereas the Raptors were 14th in offense, 10th in defense, and 11th in net rating. And one small thing about this series is that Matisse Thybulle can't play in the games in Toronto. So, if we talk about the Sixers offense first, I think the biggest question is how the Raptors are going to try and stop Embiid, because he is the best player in this series and he is a dominant player. And I think it doesn't really matter who starts on him, because I do think the Raptors are going to be switching a lot in this series, because they do have a lot of guys who are, really big, long wings like Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, Scotty Barnes, Precious Achiuwa, Chris Boucher, Thaddeus Young, Kem Birch. So they have a lot of options to throw out Embiid, and I think they're going to be switching a lot. And I think one of the important things in this series is the coaching, and Nick Nurse, he's not going to be afraid to throw out wacky things, whether it's double teams, whether it's a zone. He's going to be able to make adjustments on Embiid. But with that being said, the Raptors don't really have a guy who can stop Embiid one-on-one. I don't know if any team has a guy who can stop Embiid one-on-one. And then apart from Embiid, I think the Sixers, they have some really good players, but they have players who definitely have question marks, like Tobias Harris. What are they going to get from him? Is he going to do anything except from being sort of the guy, like the fourth option on the Sixers offense who just stands in the corner? Or are they going to get a bit more from him? Are they going to get attacking closeouts? Are they going to get some shot making? I feel like Tyrese Maxey is an X factor, because, when Harden and Embiid inevitably draw multiple defenders, I think Max is a guy who, when he gets the ball, he can do something, whether it's shooting a three or attacking the rim directly. He's also sort of a bit fast, like he plays fast, whereas Harden and Embiid don't really play as fast. So, it's sort of a nice change of tempo, and I think Maxey, he could be an X factor. And then there's obviously James Harden, who, when the Sixers traded for him, you'd expect him to be, one of the first things you bring up when you talk about a playoff series, and he is. But, I think there's a lot of question marks around him. Obviously, the scoring hasn't been as great in the last few weeks. I mean, the playmaking has still been good, and I think he can punish the Raptors with that, because he's a really good passer. But, if the Raptors are putting, they put Scotty Barnes on him in the last time they played to bother him, and they do have just a ton of wing defenders, as I previously mentioned, and guys to throw at Harden, life difficult for him. Will that bother him, or can Harden, is he going to take it up a level in the playoffs? And, maybe he's just been sort of resting a little bit during the regular season. So we'll have to see how he performs, because he has a lot of pressure on him, given that he wanted out of Brooklyn and wanted to go to Philly. And then there's obviously like the free throw attempts, and how the series is officiated, because getting a lot of calls, they're pretty much unstoppable. But if the referees tighten it up a little bit in the playoffs, and they allow a bit more physical play, then I think that definitely plays into the advantage of the Raptors, because they're not going to be afraid to be physical. They have a lot of size, and they have a lot of tough defenders. If we talk about the Raptors offense, I think who's guarding Siakam is a big question, because the Sixers don't really have anyone to do that. If I think of their defenders, I think Thybulle is a bit too small. I think Harris and Niang are a bit too slow as Embiid. But do you want to put Embiid on Siakam for 40 minutes a night? And because Siakam can play on the perimeter, and that would be tiring for Embiid. But I think it's definitely a valid option, especially late in games. We'll see if the Raptors keep sending guys to the offensive glass, and how that works out. And then there's who James Harden is guarding, because if you think of the Raptors starting lineup, Van Fleet, Gary Trent Jr., Anunoby, Barnes, and Siakam, you'd probably say Gary Trent Jr., but can the Raptors attack? And then the last thing is that the Sixers aren't really a fast team. They like to slow it down with Embiid and Harden. So can the Raptors get some stuff in transition? I think that could definitely be a possibility, because they have a lot of athletic players. Even though they don't play at the fastest pace, I think the Raptors, they haven't really been healthy altogether this season, and I think, finally now they have everyone back, so I think they could definitely be a problem for the Sixers in transition. And then there's just like the coaching mismatch. I think, Nick Nurse versus Doc Rivers. Nick Nurse, very happy to make adjustments within a playoff series, change things up, try some funky things, whereas Doc Rivers, more traditional, doesn't make too many in-game adjustments. So we'll see how that works. And there's also like the backup center position for Philadelphia when Embiid's not on the court. I mean, those minutes could be disastrous and could lose the Sixers this series. They're part of the reason why the Sixers lost to the Raptors in 2019. Obviously, two different teams, but the non-Embiid minutes are definitely going to be a problem with the Sixers, especially if he goes with DeAndre Jordan. Yeah, so overall, I think the Raptors are a pretty good matchup for the Sixers just because, Nick Nurse is a great coach, and I feel like they have a lot of wings who can give Harden and Embiid problems. If I think of a prediction, I think the Sixers are definitely more talented, especially offensively. I think at times in the playoffs, the Raptors' offense could struggle to score, just because, Siakam is great, and so is Van Fleet, but, they don't have an Embiid who can just post up and, get you to the free throw line or get you a basket. But with that being said, Siakam has been very good down the stretch. So for a prediction, I think I'm going to pick the Raptors. It is an upset, but I think I really like that they have Nick Nurse instead of Doc Rivers. I think that's going to be a big thing. And I think they'll just be ready for what the Sixers have, and I think they match up well with their size. So, yeah, I think I'll take the Raptors in 6. I could definitely see the 76ers winning in 7 or 6 games. But overall, I think this is going to be a fun series. I think it's going to be a very interesting series. And, yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe for more NBA content.